Pixie here, sharing another haircut. I want to show you a little bit. I pre-did some of it. I cut half. We're going into, this is kind of a series I've been working on, same mannequin, 3 or 4 weeks in a row. She started with quite long hair, then we went last week into this kind of mid-level shag bob. Now we're going into a shorter kind of pixie shape. I've switched to a guarded razor for this because I'm going to use it a lot flatter, and you'll see what I mean as we go on. I can use an unguarded razor flat, but if I'm going to be doing a lot of flat razoring, I do like a guarded razor. That's and also I realize many of you, that's kind of what you focus on is using the guarded razor. So very often I like to demonstrate that, you know, any of the techniques that we can do with one blade, we can do with another. Okay, so you can see I'm taking vertical sections through the back here. I've got a horseshoe sectioned out through the top. I've prepped the hair using some OA Thermo Detangling Cloud. This is a great cutting lotion, puts a nice glide on the blade, really cares for the hair. And from an awesome brand, which we'll talk about a little bit later, OA, really wonderful brand that we've been working with. After I cut the vertical layering in, I just kind of pre-work on the outline. The idea is I want to have lots of weight down here to play with in the detailing. Again, vertical sections, head is in a pretty natural position. Get this hair out of the way. You'll notice I try to take the section all the way from the top to the bottom with this. And I try to kind of bring it together, bottom up, top down, so that I build a little bit of weight at the bottom and keep extra length at the top. And sometimes I pinch, and sometimes I hold in the fingers. I look at the previous section as a reference point, and now as I'm razoring, I'm trying to razor through from floor to ceiling, but that pinching, by bringing this together, gives me a little bit more length at the crown and a little bit more length on the hairline. And that's all in preparation. There's a lot of detailing and refining that happens here. This is what I mean by some of the flat razoring that I'm doing. I come in and use the blade really flat right on the surface to carve down into the hairline. Probably something that a lot of you guys do with this type of blade. And I'm also working on the weight buildup at the top with the blade flat just on the ends to make sure we don't get too much of a weight buildup or kind of a muffiny kind of shape at the top. We want it have a nice head shape, but nothing wedgy. Okay, working into the side here. Again, the Thermo Detangling Cloud really helping. The products, the OA products, I've been working with them now for about 2 months on this series, and I've really enjoyed the quality of the products. They're so great for the type of hair that I do. Just kind of natural finishes, very light, a beautiful fragrance, a beautiful aroma in the hair. And I want to talk later a little bit about the company itself. I'm going to read you their manifesto, which I find very inspiring, that there are companies that have such a strong kind of ethic. One thing you'll notice right off the bat is everything's packaged in either glass or aluminum, so that they can be highly recyclable. I think they're like 99%, and they're working on that last 1% with the caps and things like that. So pretty soon the line will be 100% recyclable. Okay, we find that reference from the previous section. We do the same thing on the sides, kind of like in a mini version. Leaving, again, a little bit of extra length all around the edges with this cut. That's kind of part of it so that we don't end up with any kind of a harsh perimeter. And not cutting any real definite perimeter in at this stage. Just letting the razoring do the work.
Gee, we have a comment from MA Salons
Okay.
saying they love a razor cut. So many people are scared of razors, and they mean clients, not necessarily stylists. So it wasn't a question, it was just more a comment.
Sure, I think it's true of both. You know, stylists and clients can be afraid of the razor. I think, you know, there's a lot of different ways to go about handling it. You know, you can try to educate and explain, but sometimes, you know, in our busy schedules and we don't have time. Plus, we can do great haircuts with whatever tool they like and make it easy. But I do find that, you know, if many people in the salon are doing razor cuts, wearing their hair cut with a razor, and then someone says they don't like razor cuts, you can show them examples. Say, take a look around at the salon, take a look at the, you know, the clients, the stylists, take a look at these pictures. Do you like this work? I think that there's a lot of opportunity there to educate people. But I also think that, you know, sometimes we can just take it easy and say, hey, if you don't want a razor cut, that's fine. We have busy days, we have a lot going on. It takes a lot of time to not only work on someone's head, but in someone's head, right? All right, before I move on to the top, I am gonna do some detailing around the perimeter, as we discussed. So I'm gonna make sure both sides are evenly damp. I've done a little detailing on the first side, but now that I've got both sides in, I wanna be able to look at them. So redamping the hair.
That smells so good.
Yeah, it's a beautiful fragrance, beautiful aroma. And this is what I mean by when I know I'm gonna do a lot of carving like this, which I tend to do as the hair gets shorter. It's one of the beautiful things you can do with a razor. I do like to do it with the guarded razor. It's more forgiving on the cuticle. You can be a little bit more heavy-handed with it and not pull, because you've got to guard a blade. So it's not full contact as it would be with an unguarded blade, which you see me use very often. I'm also going to put some slicing in here, just using the front corner of the blade to remove bars of weight and create space where the hair gets longer and heavier. And we can do that a little bit on the outside too. Just trying to not overdo it when the hair is still damp, and I personally do like to razor on damp hair. I don't, there may be a little bit, especially around the edges with a guarded blade, that I'll do dry, but I don't do tons of dry, especially not where I want the hair cuticle to really have a nice quality to it.
Alyssa just commented on, she tries to avoid the razor with curly hair, prone to frizz, and fine hair, prone to split ends.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I personally, in my own journey as a hairdresser, I've become very comfortable working with the razor on curly hair and fine hair, but I can understand those things. They definitely make sense. But I don't necessarily know that they have to be rules, but it's really up to what works for the individual.
Yeah, she was asking if there are any other examples of where you wouldn't use a razor.
For me, there's only one type of hair that I don't like to razor, and that's hair that's been chemically relaxed. Because great razor cutting, you have to really deal with the spring of the hair, the elasticity of the hair. And anytime I feel like the hair has lost its elasticity, to me, that's the hair I don't like to razor. But other than that, because I have full rotation of my blade and I can use it in so many different ways, I feel pretty comfortable on almost any hair type and texture. But that's just me. We all have to be different. We all have to, have our own journey as a hairdresser. But don't let the journey trap you, because there's things 20 years ago that I believed were right that now I think, oh, that's not really something I'm into. There's things 20 years ago that I thought were wrong that now I love. So let your journey evolve. Don't become dogmatic. I talk about that a lot. And unfortunately, that happens a lot of times in hairdressing. It becomes like, these are the rules. The rules are always changing and evolving, especially in a creative endeavor of design and hair. And so much beauty and integrity comes from that manifesto. All right, back to the haircut. I've dropped down this side of the horseshoe. So the top was just a horseshoe. I only have half the horseshoe left because we pre-cut half the shape. Very important here so that I don't build too much weight to tilt the head towards me. Then I'm going to take a section from back to front, and I'm going to drop it over. I'm going to push this out of the way, and I'm going to follow the kind of rounded line that I created here in the temple. I followed the head shape through here. Now again, I'm going to use a lot of flat razoring here. So this is another reason why I wanted to use the guarded blade. And, because of the way that I'm blending this in from front to back, this could get very, very heavy. But if I use the flat of the razor, I'm able to build that weight without building the heaviness on the ends. Now the head's tilted towards me. I lift each section up a little bit higher than the previous. Cut air before hair. Get that blade moving. And kind of rounding into the length at the front. So the fingertips are down. So I find, having the shape rounder gives it a more feminine kind of appeal.
Seems like using the razor makes this haircut so much faster.
Yeah, I think once you get comfortable with the razor, here's the thing, there's not a lot of room for mistake. So you don't go back and push it around and check it and cut it again and check it again, as you sometimes can do with, especially with clean basic scissor cutting. You have a lot more room to play around. And I always recommend that people kind of start that way. They train on the basics of precision geometric scissor cutting before they can get into something like this, because there really isn't a lot of room. You have to be very clear on what you're doing. And once you are, things can go pretty quickly. But you have to be decisive and really have kind of an intention and a certain amount of an intuition, and of course, technical skill.
What do you see people struggle with the most where it comes to razor cutting?
I think just the dexterity of it. Like we spend so much time, especially in the beginning of our careers, getting comfortable holding a scissor or a shear. We also get quality scissors and shears right away. I think lots of times people have very poor quality razors, and they don't really think about the dexterity of holding it properly, of working with the fingers. I think if you don't have that stuff down, everything becomes very difficult. So you can see just roughly working around the bang or the front, not too much detail yet. Remember, rounding through kind of created that.
We have one of the most oldest arguments ever. Okay. Shears, not scissors.
Well, we could talk about that all day long. And we have for many years at Hairbrain. It's really interesting. A lot of US hairdressers will say, if you don't say shears, it doesn't sound professional. But then British and European hairdressers say exactly the opposite. Shears are for sheath. If you don't say scissors, you don't sound professional. You know what I like? How about shearsers? How about we go with that, right? No point in arguing.
She's sending laughing emojis.
Yeah, because it's just, listen, I've been doing this for 33 years. I happened to start off with an English company. I worked for Vidal Sassoon, and it was drummed into us. These you call scissors. Never use the word shears. That's not, it's the same old thing I was saying before. Whatever someone tells you right or wrong, or say this or don't say this, just keep an open mind, because it all changes over time.
Okay, another question. Yeah. How often do you change the blade with the razor?
I mean, in all honesty, I like a new blade for every haircut. I really do. It's just like, I want the sharpest, most refined thing that I can cut with. So last bit here, I'm dropping down the back of the horseshoe and I'm following around now, and again, blending into the underneath in a round way, using flat razoring, and really just getting this basic shape in, and then we can get to the real sexy detailing here. But back to that question, yeah, I like a sharp blade. I like to be the one in control of my pressure. Some people say, oh, I like it better on the second haircut. But for me, I feel like, again, back to what I was saying about dexterity, for me, it's up to me if I want to be more gentle. You see, I can be very, very gentle, or I can be much more aggressive.
What are the economics behind that? What's a case of blades going for at this point?
These blades for the guarded, I think you get 10 in a box for around $10. So it's about $1 a blade, give or take.
So if half of your haircuts are a razor cut, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
And razors are pretty cheap in comparison to scissors. So.
For the most part, yes. I mean, the feather styling razor. Shears. Yeah. It's definitely a worthwhile investment. Remember to tilt the head towards you and really round through using the flat of the razor. Adding some slicing as I go, just using the front corner to make sure there isn't too much weight, and getting a lot more separation in the hair. Obviously very important to be aware that you're at the crown, and in a lot of hair types, hair textures, the crown can be kind of jumpy. So we want to make sure that we don't remove too much in this area. Too short, really. We can get in there and take some weight out, but we just don't want her to end up too short in the crown. Okay, one last technical thing to do before I go into all the detail work. Just going to come through here vertically. And I'm going to use a kind of a pinching technique here, where I just come in with the corner of the blade and shape through here.
Is there any worries that you'll stick your thumb?
Not with this, it's a guarded blade. And you have to, you're very, very gentle. Sometimes people do this flat. That was something I always felt was a little bit too harsh. And then over the years, I saw some great blade cutters like Shea Dempsey and Michael Polsinelli, big inspirations with this type of blade, do this.
It's a little bit like point cutting.
Yes. The nice thing about it, it's a little more organic because it's from the inside, and it's not so perfect. You know, it's got that little bit more of a raw edge to it, which I like.
And when you're cutting with the razor, do you let the hair dry like you do with a scissor, or do you?
I like to keep it consistently damp, and for me, even a lot of times with the scissor, depending on the type of cutting that I'm doing, I keep it consistently damp. If it's precision geometric hair cutting, I would keep it consistently damp from beginning to end. If it's more free form, you know, freehand cutting, you might be able to work with it in different states. But with the razor, you know, I personally like to keep this. I don't like soaking wet hair. I just like it slightly damp. I do find that the product that I used here, the Thermo Detangling Cloud, keeps that moisture in the hair, keeps it nice and hydrated without being super heavy or sticky in any way. So I get a lot of play out of that. And here you can see almost just kind of checking through everything. Sometimes people are surprised to see how much shape there is. Like when you lift it out, it's not just, it's quite soft on the ends, but there's a nice rounded shape that we were going for right from the beginning. And just lightly checking, rounding it all through. This side was already pre-cut, but I want to check it in, make sure it balances with the first side. Okay, now as I mentioned, there's lots of fun detailing to do here, particularly in the nape and areas like that. So I'm going to start to lift this up a little bit and kind of flatten and drop it down and in. I left a lot of weight here in the nape so that we'd have something to really customize into a nice, soft, head-hugging shape. Can come back through. Again, use some slicing down in here. Come back in here, just the tip of the blade, sitting this all in nicely to the head. It's nice to keep a little bit of weight in here, so using a little over direction so that we have something here to play with. Here. Probably gonna start to take this length up a little bit now, just right in the middle, just so it sits right in the base of the skull and helps to kind of kick into the back of the ears. So that really just kind of helps that push in right through there. Again, come right back through the center. Look for any heaviness. You can use this kind of splicing technique here. Rounding through that crown. Okay, what we've been doing with all of these lessons is filming them and turning them into reels that we then put on our Instagram. They also end up here on Facebook as well, where you can see the whole technique in a kind of condensed version.
How's our TikTok game?
TikTok game is strong. If you guys want to check out TikTok, we've been really, same thing, putting lots of lessons there. But Instagram is someplace we've been for a very, very long time, and we're really focusing on putting a lot of these lessons there. So you can see the shape here damp. Hopefully you can get a feeling for it. I'm gonna add a little bit more product, and then I'm gonna flat wrap it to get a finished look that I want. You could obviously hand dry this or let it just dry naturally, but I'm gonna flat wrap it, and then we'll put up a picture of the finished look here on Facebook. Thank you for